Good morning to all of our IC fans, and welcome to the Independent Center podcast. My name is Daniel Ratcliffe. I will be your host today. First, listeners, let me ask you, how would you feel in a world where if you went to the grocery store and went down a detergent aisle, you had a skin reaction or a limited amount of breath and you couldn't breathe? Like, how would you really make it through that? Has anybody ever thought about that? I know that I haven't. And today, our topic will be fragrance sensitivities. And I am joined today by two wonderful individuals, Jaime Harrell and Pauline Nelson. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't grab your last name. I'm sorry. And these are two individuals that both live with fragrance sensitivities. And these fragrance sensitivities affect them in two different ways. And we're going to kind of delve into that to kind of educate the people around us about that. So good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Daniel. Okay. Thanks for having us.
That's no problem. Lucky to have you guys here. So I would like to start with you, Pauline, to just give us a little background on who you are and how the fragrance sensitivity has affected your life, and just to gain a little knowledge. Like, I'm very much so in a place of ignorance, per se, because I don't have much knowledge about fragrance sensitivity. So I would like you to break that down to me, and what does that look like for you?
Thank you. I would be happy to do that. First of all, my name is Pauline Nelson, and I currently am semi-retired. I worked as an administrative assistant for about 35 years, and then I've also done work with doing respite care for military families who have children with disabilities. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of volunteer work in our community. I first developed sensitivities to fragrances and chemicals approximately 12 years ago.
Okay.
And it first started out with being highly reactive to cleaning chemicals, particularly things that came in a spray can, that had a propellant.
So like air fresheners or
window cleaners.
Okay. What, like Febreze?
Febreze usually comes in a spray bottle, but yes, that is something that I'm also very, very sensitive to.
Okay.
So initially, it was something, like a window cleaner, and then then it kind of morphed into starting to be sensitive to like people's perfumes or colognes. What really turned the corner for me was the air fresheners that you plug in and then they spray out every so many seconds.
Yeah, the Glade plugins.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was house sitting for a friend. I did not know it, but they had put some in their home that day. And I laid down to take a nap, and I woke up maybe 15, 20 minutes later, and I knew something was wrong, but I could not figure out what 3 numbers to dial to get help.
Wow.
My throat was swelling shut. And I simply couldn't think well enough to get help for myself. Fortunately, it was really cold outside, and I thought, well, I'm going to go outside, and maybe I could get to the neighbors, and they could help me. Mm. Well, none of the neighbors were home, and so I ended up sitting outside for probably 2 hours, wrapped up in a quilt and then another quilt, because I couldn't go back in the house, and I couldn't figure out still how to get help.
Wow.
From that, then after that point, then my sensitivity to all different types of fragrances increased greatly. And this is is called multiple chemical sensitivity because it's actually a systemic reaction to what your body perceives as poison. And so it can manifest itself in many different ways because when you're exposed to the chemical, then your brain says you're in danger.
Right.
And so, then the brain stimulates a response to what is the danger. And that's why some people, have one reaction and someone else will have a completely different reaction.
Understand. Yeah.
And so it's something that can affect, every aspect of a person's life.
Wow, that's amazing. So just hearing that, I might ask some questions that are considered to be basic, but just to get a better idea for our listeners, it sounds like it's the equivalent of like chemical warfare, almost like if somebody were to drop mustard gas somewhere, that your neurological and nervous system would react in a way that your body would feel like it had to work against itself to survive it. Is that?
In many respects, that's
correct.
That's a good analogy.
Gotcha.
One of the things that happens, and it's one of the reasons it's so hard to navigate, is every exposure you have, then your brain is recognizing you're in danger. So it stays on high alert longer. And then the next time it recognizes you're in danger faster, and it stays on high alert a longer period of time. So it can reach the point where your brain is always perceiving high alert.
You become hypervigilant.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And your body becomes hypersensitive.
Understand. Wow, that's amazing. I just, in the position that I'm in, I just couldn't imagine not putting fabric softener into my clothing, to make it smell good. If that was something that I was allergic to, I would have to figure out another way. So with that being said, have you figured out any coping mechanisms that can help you through these particular times when you may be exposed to chemicals? Or is there anything that, any type of safety plan that you've put in for yourself?
Yes. The primary part of that plan is avoidance. And that greatly limits what a person can do with their life. But I do the very best I can to avoid situations where I know people are going to, have on a lot of fragrance, whether it's hand lotion or cologne, scented hairspray. Like you mentioned, fabric softeners are a really big thing, and scented laundry soap is a really big thing.
Wow.
And so, I practice avoidance. I try to educate as many people as I possibly can. Because you're right, it's something that most people don't think about as being a danger or being troublesome.
Right.
Fabric softeners and dryer sheets literally are made up of several thousand chemicals.
Thousands?
Yeah.
Wow.
When you're reading the label and it lists, ingredients, there may be up to hundreds of ingredients into the thing that's on the label.
Wow.
Like when you'll see something that'll say like parfum or perfume or fragrance, that in itself can be made up of literally several hundred chemicals. So you never know what you're really being exposed to.
Gotcha.
So, for myself, I use a scent-free laundry soap, and I use the wool dryer balls in place of dryer sheets. For cleaning products at my home, I use primarily vinegar and hydrogen peroxide, in baking soda, and all of those things are, at least for me, safe. For someone else, vinegar, for example, may not be safe, but it does work for me.
Okay.
I'm very careful about when I shop, and I'm very careful about where in the store I shop.
Okay. So I'm guessing you're avoiding the cleaning aisle.
Yes, I do not go down the cleaning aisle, and I do not go down the aisles on each side of the cleaning aisle.
Okay.
If I need, for example, laundry soap, I either buy it on the end cap at one of the local drugstores, or I have my daughter buy it for me when she's shopping, or sometimes I will order online. But there again, it's something they have to be careful, because many of the boxes that come are heavily scented.
Yes.
So you just have to learn to navigate what works for you as an individual. And it's trial and error.
Yeah, definitely. And I can only imagine the limitations that may be in place. But I must say, it sounds like you've done a wonderful job of adapting and figuring it out, of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And I commend you for that. That's amazing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
You're very welcome.
that.
Yeah. And just to kind of switch it up a little bit, to show the different variations of fragrance sensitivity. Jaime, who has been here before on our podcast. This is, I think, your second time.
Yeah, thanks
here.
for having me back.
No doubt. You're very welcome. So, Jaime, you experience some fragrance sensitivities as well?
I do.
Yes. So, could you give the listeners just a little, insight into how your fragrance sensitivities affect you?
Sure. So I get migraines pretty frequently. And starting, a long time ago, maybe when I was 13, 14 years old, I experienced a pretty long stint of daily migraines. And after about 6 months of getting those pretty severe migraines every day, I would bathe myself in some really fragrant lotions from a pretty popular store.
Okay.
And I smelled great. I loved it, and it didn't even occur to me that that might be impacting my migraines. And from then on, went on to college and went on to the rest of my life, and continued to wear perfumes and fragrance and smelled amazing. So I thought, and until I realized that this really might be triggering some of these horrible headaches that I was having, and truly by calling them headaches, I'm doing it a disservice.
Let's delve into that. What did those migraines look like for you? How debilitating were those migraines?
Debilitating to the extent it was impacting my life and ability to function on a daily basis. And because I have reorganized my medication and my access to fragrance,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of my lifestyle choices that I've made, I am able to now function, to work, to do the majority of my daily activities the way I'd like to. I still have days where I can't do that, but for the most part, because I'm pretty regimented in my activities, I can live the way I want to. But for a long time, I wasn't able to do that.
So I think what I'm asking is, I've never experienced a migraine, and I can't remember the last time that I've had a headache.
Sure.
The difference between a migraine and a headache, what does that look like? Like, just for our listeners, there may be some listeners that have never experienced a migraine and do not truly understand.
And I hope that our listeners that have never experienced a migraine, they never do. Migraines are horrible and can be different from person to person. So I can only speak for myself and what that looks like. but a migraine is a pretty specific type of headache that does need to be diagnosed by a doctor. It can be and can be debilitating, and again, I can speak for myself. Those migraines are something that can cause a number of symptoms outside of a specific pain. So for me, it can be everything from numbness to certain parts of my body to the inability to speak, which is kind of a scary thing when you're trying to talk and the words that come out of your mouth don't match up to the words that are in your brain.
Wow.
So when I loved the way I smelled and had all this fragrance around me, and it was impacting my migraines, it really did make it made a difference. When I would go to work and not be able to talk, or I had to leave because I couldn't see. And then for 6 hours after that, I was completely debilitated, or had to go to the emergency room because I needed medication.
Wow.
It really has, it changed my life. And so now that I've taken away some of the factors that influence my my migraines and my sensitivity to that, I'm able to really do the ththings that I want to do in life.
What were some of those
Yep.
major factors that you had to kind of put to the side in order to recover?
Well, we're kind of talking about our multiple chemical sensitivities today,
Yes.
and fragrance and perfume, lotions that don't have fragrance, body washes, things like that you just add in to your life and and you don't think about. So those things, even using unscented deodorants and things like that. I don't think anybody wants to go out of their way to not smell good.
Right.
But even the people that are around me, my kids, my mom and dad, my sister, who still love fragrance, but they know that they can't come around me and wear perfumes or scented lotions. They have to adjust their life a little bit because it does impact me when they come in and they've got this wonderful perfume and they love to smell
Yeah.
good too, but they can't be around me that way. It's asking the individuals who come into my life to adjust a bit and to make some lifestyle changes as well. It's asking the people at work to be compliant
Yes.
when they come into our building, to make sure that they are addressing all types of disabilities, to make sure that just because they can't see what it is that's impacting me, that they do that as well.
Yes.
So it's asking our local businesses to say, hey, you know what, people are impacted by fragrance. Please, don't put scented lotions out on the counter because people want soft skin.
Right.
It's a great thing. But if it has fragrance to it, it means that I can't come in. So things like that. It changes perspective a little bit. Some people get a little bit upset because they love the way they smell. I love the way I smell. So, it really impacts the way people's perception is.
Okay.
Aftershave is an amazing thing for those guys out there sometimes.
And girls.
And girls, hey. So, it really is a shift in perception in our community as well. So if we want our community to be open to people with all types of disabilities, we have to kind of shift that perception too.
Right. And that's ultimately our mission, is to shift the perception of the public to be more inclusive of everyone. And that's our true goal, whether through the Independent Center or for me personally and for others personally. So I have a question for both of you guys. If somebody bought you flowers, would flowers trigger your sensitivity to chemical fragrance?
For me, no, because flowers are an actual natural product. Almost all things that are scented are made up of chemicals.
Gotcha.
And I realize this isn't your question at the moment, but I'd
You're
like to
fine.
add two things to what you were just
Yes.
saying.
Go right ahead.
I can give two examples of, like asking people who are near to us and care about us, to make some changes. And one is I went to visit a relative I hadn't seen for quite some time. And this relative knew for about 6 months that I was coming. But they continued to burn candles in their home until the night before I got there. I was in their house for less than 5 minutes, and I had an anaphylactic reaction.
Wow.
And this is the person I was supposed to stay with on vacation. Needless to say, I didn't stay there. So when we talked about it, after, her comment was, well, I didn't think it would matter, as long as I wasn't burning it when you were here.
Right.
The chemicals from air fresheners and, like, for example, candles actually permeate fabric.
Wow.
And so the chemicals are embedded in your soft surfaces. And then the other thing that I would like to add to what you were saying is with local businesses, almost all local businesses have either air fresheners or very scented soap in their restrooms.
Yes.
And for someone who has respiratory reactions like I do, I simply can't, use that bathroom.
Wow.
And there have been times when I have, like been traveling or maybe just doing errands around the city, and I either have to go to multiple places and hope there's a bathroom I can use, or I have to drive all the way back home.
Wow.
And then, go back to be able to finish my errands. And there are products such as like activated charcoal, which is an excellent odor absorber.
Okay.
That could be used in place of an air freshener.
Okay. And where could one purchase that? Is that available like at Walmart? Or?
It is.
Okay, so it's available at Walmart. For anybody listening that may have family members or friends that have chemical sensitivities, activated charcoal could be a great solution, I guess.
Yes, it works really well. It's an actual odor absorber, and you can either buy it at a Walmart. That's usually in the area where they have supplies for ironing clothes.
Okay.
Or you can order it online, through Walmart or Amazon.
Okay.
It's inexpensive and very effective.
How do you use it?
For example, the ones at Walmart just come in a little plastic container, and then you just tear the it's like Saran wrap, only thicker. You just tear that off, and then pull the label back, and then you just set it in your bathroom or your kitchen or laundry room. You can put it in your car underneath the seat. It could be a lot of different ways of doing it.
Wow, that is new to me. So that helps with odor, period. So
Correct.
If my car had a bad smell that wasn't chemical, I could put this charcoal in there and it would absorb the odor of my car.
Yes.
What about Stinky Feet? Will it help with
works
Stinky
for
Feet?
that too.
Sometimes
put it
coming
in
from
your
the gym, just some would say that my feet are a chemical fragrance sometimes.
Well, you can actually, put it in your gym bag. You can put it. You can even order it in different forms. You can even get some types that you could stick inside your shoes.
Awesome. I'm going to look those up.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. So we were talking earlier in the waiting area, you and Jaime and I, and the question came up, which I felt was a wonderful question that I would want both of you guys to ask. This is actually Jaime's question, and she asked Pauline, what would a perfect environment look like for you? What would be the perfect environment for you to be comfortable with your sensitivity to fragrance?
That's such a big, big question. And honestly, it's hard to comprehend what a world without chemical fragrances would look like for me.
Okay.
But some very basic things. I would like all public buildings to be fragrance and scent free. I'd like to be able to go to the DMV and only go one time. That for me, that's not possible now. I have to make multiple trips and plan it out.
Wow.
I would like to be able to go to the grocery store and get in line and actually be able to pay for my groceries. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the grocery store and I shop the outside of the store, but I've gotten in line and someone near me will have on strong fragrances, and I have had almost immediate reactions.
Wow.
And I have had to leave my groceries and go home and go to bed because I can barely breathe.
Wow.
And, so I would like to be able to do that. I'd like to be able to go to the movies and feel safe that I'm going to be able to sit down and watch a movie just like everybody else. I'd like to go, for example, like to a musical event.
Yes.
And not have to worry about the people surrounding me.
Yeah.
Or, can I go to the bathroom here? It would be such a marvelous world to not have to worry about, the scents that invade our daily spaces.
Right.
Where worrying about that would be the exception and not how I live my life every day.
Wonderful answer. That was a really good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I must say that I'm becoming more aware and understanding how this affects you guys, and I will promise to be more sensitive to it and be more, I guess, vigilant about making sure that fragrances are limited.
And Daniel, Pauline really hit on something when she was talking about what this perfect world would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that our listeners are really aware of how big this chemical sensitivity is in our world. And, really, it's about 35% of our population that has some type of chemical sensitivity that impacts some part of their life. And really about 15% of our population is impacted so significantly that it stops their daily life somehow.
Wow.
And so it's not just Pauline and it's not just me, but it is 15% of our population, of our area, that is impacted to where they can't do their daily life. They can't go to work or they can't go to the grocery store. And we're really trying to put that awareness out there that this is a big deal, that it is 15 out of every 100 people out there.
Wow.
So it's huge.
One of the things that it really impacts for a lot of people, and I think it's something that most people are not aware of, is the access to medical and dental and vision care. When you go to a medical facility, first of all, there's the waiting area. Is that scented? Are the people who are at the front desk, are they wearing scented products? Is the doctor or the nurse or the nurse practitioner, whoever's taking care of you, the dentist, are they scented? If you go get your teeth cleaned, can you safely go and know that the person who's going to be taking care of you doesn't have fragrances, or their clothes aren't washed in scented soap with fabric softener? And so that impacts people's access to medical care in a very significant way.
Wow. And I would have never even thought that far as what I smell when I walk into dental offices or just offices, period. Never would even taken the time to think twice about how it would impact someone. And it goes to show that sometimes we can be so caught up in our own world of what we enjoy and what we want for ourselves that we forget about others. And I would challenge all of our listeners to just take this into consideration and really think about, do you really need the perfume or do you just want it? And if you can go without to save somebody else's life or to allow them to access public places or just be able to live independently, I would challenge you to maybe cut back on the fragrances, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, no fragrances, or even more than that if you can. I really challenge you guys to do that. I'll participate in that challenge as well. And Jaime, back to the question of what would a perfect, let's go for work environment. What would a perfect work environment look like for you as far as fragrance goes?
I'm very lucky that our office is a fragrance-free facility. So we very much strive to make it a scent-free environment. On occasion, we do have individuals who come in. I would love to see that not happen. I would love to see our community be aware, and I think that in my eyes would be, I think the perfect environment for me is where people are aware of what needs to happen, and I don't know that there ever is really a perfect world.
Right.
My idea of perfect is different than Pauline's.
Definitely.
Because we're all unique
Right.
individuals. But I would love to be in a place where people understand. So that way, if somebody does come in with wonderful smelling perfume on or aftershave, that they understand that when I say, hey, you know what, this is a fragrance-free facility, they're like, oh, you know what, I forgot today, instead of getting upset.
Right.
And I think that's the bigger picture, is that people's awareness is there. And so that would be my perfect scenario.
That's awesome, man. Like I said, you guys have been wonderful here today. Very informative. I must ask, overall, has this sensitivity prevented you from being able to travel? Like if you're getting on public transportation, let's think outside of people's perfumes. Let's say cigarettes. Are they harmful to you guys? That's very much so chemical fragrance per se. But would cigarettes impact you guys negatively, or any type of like smoke? If somebody was smoking, would that trigger your allergies?
That's a great question. For me personally, no, cigarette smoke does not impact my migraines. It doesn't trigger migraines for me. I do know that the chemical impact for a lot of individuals with multiple chemical sensitivity is there.
Okay.
In fact, if they're in an enclosed area, it's very impacting for individuals. If it's an open area outside, if you walk by somebody who's smoking and they have that individual has a chemical sensitivity, it can absolutely trigger a reaction.
Okay.
But again, it's unique to each person.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that sort of answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And I'm just truly asking to get a better understanding of it all, and for our listeners to get a true understanding of it all in order to be more aware and mindful.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess in closing, I would want both of you to just really, if you have something that you want our listeners to leave with, which you guys have been providing this entire interview, just some good last words to leave our listeners with as far as the awareness side of multi-chemical sensitivities.
I would ask people to please start looking at the products in their lives. So many of the products, that are used in the average home, it's like layer upon layer of scented products or other chemicals, laundry soaps, even like dish soap that you use to wash your dishes. There's probably 25 different fragrances.
Wow.
And so I would ask people to please start looking at what they use in their daily lives and see which things that they can start eliminating, even though not everyone perceives an effect by all of these different chemicals. Over time, it's certainly possible to build up a sensitivity because your bodies are exposed to chemicals over and over and over again. And so for some people, there becomes a level of toxic overload. And so as individuals, if you could start reducing that in your own life, it generally is healthier for you and your family. And the other thing that I would ask is that when you are encountering a person who does have chemical sensitivities, to please understand that we're all different, and just because you can't see that situation, that doesn't mean that person doesn't have a disability.
Yes.
And it's very real, and it affects people's lives on a daily basis. So please try to be more understanding and supportive of people who do have that particular disability.
Wow. And in closing for you, Jaime?
So our community is very inclusive of individuals with disabilities, and I would love to reach out to that community and let everyone know that that we can make it even more inclusive. And by opening up businesses and agencies to a scent-free, fragrance-free policy, by changing bathroom soaps and by making a policy for your staff and for individuals who come in, so that way everybody, those the 15% of individuals who are truly impacted and cannot go out in the community because individuals and staff members are wearing fragrances, and to really to call out to our community and say, hey, let's truly make this an inclusive community for everybody, and reach out and say, let's embrace this as a whole. And that's really important. To not do that, and to make it a good, open community for everyone.
Yeah. It sounds like the word for today is mindfulness. And I would just like to remind all of our listeners and consumers that come to the Independence Center, we are a fragrance-free zone. And we would really appreciate it before coming into the office. Please be mindful of those with sensitivities to fragrance. We just ask that of you, and we don't have too many issues, and people are very careful about it once they found out that we have the fragrance-free policy in effect. And they're very accepting. But for those that did not know, we are a fragrance-free zone. So please be mindful of that before coming in for an appointment. With that being said, I want to thank both of you, Pauline Nelson and Jaime Harrell, for being with us today on the Independence Center podcast. Our time is done. Thank you guys for coming. And once again, this is Daniel Ratcliffe signing off.